The Old Guard was directed by Gina Prince-Bythewood and stars Charlize Theron as yet another badass chick. And this badass chick is a warrior named Andy. She's teamed up with a covert group of tight-knit mercenaries with a mysterious inability to die. And basically, the antecedent beat is that they have fought to protect the mortal world for centuries. But when the team is recruited to take on an emergency mission, and their extraordinary abilities are suddenly exposed, it's up to Andy and Niall, played by KiKi Layne, who is the newest soldier to join their ranks. It's up to them to help the group eliminate the threat of those who are seeking to replicate and monetize their power by any means necessary. Now, this movie is actually based off of the acclaimed series of graphic novels written by Greg Rucka, who also wrote the screenplay for this. Now, I, going in, was not familiar with this source material at all, so I'm assuming those who are fans of the graphic novel and watch this movie will have more to say about how faithful it is. I'm assuming it's very, very close because the creator is also the screenwriter. But what did I think of this movie? Well, for the most part, I did find myself having fun with The Old Guard. I think there's a plethora of things for you guys to enjoy with this movie. First and foremost, the direction and the action scenes. These are really, really cool. I think this is a very well-directed movie. It's very, very gritty. The action scenes and the hand-to-hand combat, really, really cool and badass. Although these scenes were maybe not too out of the ordinary in terms of the choreography, I still had tons of fun with these action scenes whenever they came up. My favorite one is near the end of the first act. It's a white-knuckled fist fight on a plane. Super, super neat. And not only the hand-to-hand stuff, but I found a lot of the firearm sequences pretty neat too. I was looking at these scenes and I couldn't help but imagine myself playing Call of Duty watching these. Not really any correlation, but that's just what I was thinking of. That's what it looked like to me, a stealth level in a Call of Duty campaign. Really nice visual set pieces in the action scenes as well. These scenes were super badass. I also gotta praise this film for the ideas that it brings to the table. This is really, really cool stuff. It's almost like what would happen if X-Men and John Wick had a movie baby, and you get The Old Guard. You know, just an idea, just to compare. Now, a lot of people may have a problem with the overload of exposition in this movie, and some people may think that it's too much. Honestly, the exposition in this movie did not bug me at all. Because the exposition, when it appeared, it at least flowed naturally, and it felt like stuff that was warranted. At least stuff that's worthy of talking about. I mean, the exposition that I like, I feel like I've said this in a couple of other reviews already, but the layers keep getting peeled back about the world and the characters we're looking at. It at least feels natural. I mean, it's not like, you know, here, in the first 5 minutes, here's a gigantic pile of exposition, have at it. No, it at least feels natural. Now, I mentioned something about the characters also. Very badass characters flooded all throughout this movie. Charlize Theron, once again, really, really cool presence as Andy. She is one of my favorite female action stars working today. Mad Max Fury Road, Atomic Blonde, and now The Old Guard. Fantastic presence, great performance, great emotions throughout, great range. The stunt work in her action scenes, she is fantastic in the action scenes, super badass. I also got to talk about KiKi Layne as Niall. She was really, really good. Her character was so cool. There were a lot of really, really brutal scenes with that character that made me cringe. In a good way, though. Keep in mind, this movie's rated R, so there's going to be a lot of gory sequences. I thought she was very good, and I really liked her chemistry with Charlize Theron. I feel like they played off each other wonderfully. All the acting I thought was really good. Matthias Schoenaerts, superb performance. Marwan Kenzari tried. My apologies if there was any mispronunciation there, but I thought his performance was really, really good. Finally, he's cast in a really badass role, and it seems warranted. You know, not like an underage Jafar, criminally underage, I must say, in a really crappy Disney remake. At least this performance was good, and the movie around him was at least decent. I was happy to see that for him. Chiwetel Ejiofor is also in this movie. As always, fantastic performance, a great presence to have. No complaints for me on the performance side of things. How simple of a review is this? I joke, of course. Even though there's a lot of things to really like about The Old Guard, I did have a couple issues with it. And I think these issues are really, really detrimental, and it really holds the movie back from being an instant classic action film. First thing I want to mention is that the editing, while solid overall throughout, it can be very inconsistent at times. Just to give you an example, there are moments in this movie, not even in the action stuff, but just in normal everyday life. For example, there's a scene where they're going to a restaurant to meet up with Chiwetel Ejiofor's character near the beginning. For no reason whatsoever, it'll just cut to a oneer from a close-up. How do I want to put this? They just didn't make sense. I don't know, maybe I'm just a stickler, maybe I just felt those shots fell out of place. I think the editing was solid overall, it's just a few choices they made were kind of weird. Now, speaking of out of place, I want to talk a little bit about the soundtrack / musical score. Now, while there's some good song choices throughout, again, there's a lot of times where it can feel inconsistent with the tone that the movie's trying to go for. Like, for example, it'll cut to one of those big badass action sequences I was referring to, and it feels like the perfect time to have that grand instrumental Hans Zimmer score coming in. But no, instead we get, like, pop Rebecca Black lyrics in the background. I mean, I know it's not actually Rebecca Black, but, like, I don't know, it just didn't fit for me. Now, I am all for twists, and I'm all for red herrings, but that makes me think of my biggest issue with this movie, is that there's a few too many of them. This screenplay is littered with red herrings all over the place, and that's especially in regards to good versus evil alignment. It was about halfway through this movie where I figured out finally who the antagonist was. This is getting into mild spoiler territory, so be forewarned. I thought at the beginning that Chiwetel Ejiofor was going to be the villain, because I mentioned that he has a restaurant scene with our ragtag group of heroes, and after the heroes leave, there is a guy holding a sniper rifle watching this whole interaction through the scope. And then after the heroes leave, Chiwetel Ejiofor's looking around and he finds the guy right in the scope and he waves to him. And I was sitting there watching it like, that's a really badass way to introduce your villain. Like, he has eyes everywhere. But no, he actually switches alignments by the end of the movie, which is very, very strange. No, the real villain of this movie is played by an actor named Harry Melling. Some of you might remember him as Dudley from the Harry Potter universe movies. Now, I thought his performance was really, really solid here, actually. He was the most snot-nosed little pissant you could ever imagine. I really bought his performance. It was really fun. But the thing is, like, I've seen this guy before. And I mean that in the sense that this was your typical run-of-the-mill villain. There wasn't really anything interesting about him. He's a CEO of some business or whatever. He's really into science and he's trying to get these heroes and their genes or something for their research. It almost made me think back to Riz Ahmed's character in Venom, except, again, in a better movie. But I thought his performance was fine, but I've seen this guy before many, many times. There wasn't really anything interesting about him. Although partially inconsistent at times, I think the old guard is very gritty, very action-packed, really, really cool ideas. And I think this whole premise and this message is actually pretty unique. It shows that achieving immortality is one thing. Maintaining it is a lot harder than it looks. Okay, I'll run with it. But I think it's definitely worth checking out. I'm gonna give the old guard a B. Lots of new movies are out for lots of different tastes. The Old Guard, like I said, is on Netflix right now. If you guys have seen it already, I'd like to hear what you guys thought about it down in the comments below, so feel free to sound off as much as you like. Guys, thank you so much again, as always, for tuning in. Feel free to give the video a thumbs up if you like it, and if you want to see more from me, feel free to hit the subscribe button down below as hard as you possibly can. Look forward to more fun reviews coming up very soon. I've got a top 10 ranking video coming up, and I'm also, next weekend, going to be starting on a Christopher Nolan series of film reviews, starting off with Inception. You guys rock. Seriously, thank you so much again for tuning in, and with all that being said, Back Talk, commence.